Hello and welcome to episode 46 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is June 18th, and together with Goran and Robert, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So today, unfortunately, Goran and Robert cannot be with us, but I'm happy to have Michael with me, who will talk about using Azure DevOps, ARM deployments, and how to basically deploy an SAP system from scratch. In the past, we had talked about the very extensive GitHub repository with a huge library of Terraform and Ansible scripts, and obviously that's still there and can be used by customers, or is used by customers. But what Michael will focus on, or what Michael will show, what he has done, how he used portions of this GitHub repo, and how he can actually simplify, or has simplified the way how to get this deployment started. But we'll hear more about it from him in a second. As always, before we go to him and hand over to him, let's quickly take a look at some of the news from this week. And I actually want to start with a few topics from Microsoft Digital, or the Microsoft IT department. As we had mentioned in the past, I think it's really great to see that Microsoft obviously is also a huge customer of SAP, and in Microsoft IT running SAP, they obviously have a lot of lessons learned, and they optimized the whole operation of how to run an SAP system over the years. And the beautiful thing is that they are really talking about this. They are really sharing their experience. And just last week, there were two blogs, one about optimizing SAP for Azure. So here, the team really talks about, well, that since beginning of 2018, really all of SAP instances running are really on Azure. And then they talk about some of their lessons learned, like how the whole capacity management, or the whole approach on how to actually work and size your infrastructure, how this has changed, how the whole process is much more dynamic, how they do scale up, how they size their infrastructure, how they basically really approach running an SAP system in Azure, which obviously is quite different from running an SAP system on premise. And again, here they really talk very detailed. You can also download this in a PDF document on their lessons learned of really optimizing and running an SAP system in Azure. Really highly recommended to take some time and look at this. Actually, some of the things that are mentioned here, I mean, we had Hans Reuter from Microsoft Digital joining us, and he already gave a beautiful presentation there. But then, as you can see here, there's about automated shutdowns, and we had Santosh on the show some time ago talking about this. They're talking about telemetry and monitoring, and obviously we had some sessions about Azure monitoring for SAP solutions. So there's really a lot of content in this blog alone. But then especially when we focus on telemetry and monitoring, then there's another blog post from Microsoft Digital that really talks about telemetry and monitoring in more detail, like about the whole infrastructure. So basically really looking at, there's a nice slide here about all the different solutions that Microsoft is using, and then what's the benefit actually of looking inside these systems. Again, similar to what we talked about in the Azure monitoring for SAP sessions that we had, to not only leverage or monitor CPU usage and memory usage, but really also have some insights in the SAP system. And actually, they're also then looking at the different personas. Here, what's the value for the business users, or for the executives, or for the engineers? So it's another really beautiful blog post that talks about what Microsoft is doing to actually look inside the SAP systems and take actions out of that. So I think really two very, very interesting blog posts that show how Microsoft is actually running an SAP system. following the Microsoft and SAP usage, there was a news by on the news.sap.com, which talks about Microsoft using SAP SuccessFactors. So apparently, we just completed our rollout of SuccessFactors for all of our employees at Microsoft, and now we are using SuccessFactors Employee Central as the central tool for our HR operations there. I think it's just interesting to see the approach that Microsoft is also taking there. I think Hans Reuter also had talked about this, that obviously if there is a SaaS service, if there is a software as a service solution that fits the requirements, then of course Microsoft is also interested in using and leveraging these services. And with SuccessFactors, that's what we've done here for Employee Central. If we switch to the next topic and staying with SuccessFactors, there was a very interesting guide released that talks about SuccessFactors integration into Azure Active Directory. So with a lot of customers, what we see is that Azure Active Directory is the authentication tool or authentication provider for the technical side. If I log on to Office 365, if I log on to my SAP system, I can use Azure Active Directory. But then there's also SuccessFactors where the employee journey, the employee identity is maintained. So if I'm a new hire in a company, if I change my roles in my company, then SuccessFactors is often the tool of choice to track these changes. And obviously, if you have this connection between SuccessFactors and Azure Active Directory and can do this really in both directions, so if there's a change on Azure Active Directory, that this change can be reflected in SuccessFactors and the other way around, then that's obviously extremely beneficial. And this paper here, where lots of other companies obviously also contributed here, it outlines the steps of how you can connect Azure Active Directory with your SuccessFactors. So it's a beautiful guide that sheds some light on different aspects of what you need to do there. And I think if you are a SuccessFactors customer, if you are an Azure Active Directory customer, then this is definitely very worth checking out and spending some time on this. Good. Then going to the next topic, we had talked about in the past already several times about new data center regions being established across the globe, and also new data centers being built. We also talked about the sustainability aspect, that I think by 2030 Microsoft wants to be carbon neutral, and services or targets like this. And in this connection, basically, Microsoft published this blog post about a new data center in Arizona. It's a sustainable data center region in Arizona. So the idea here is that you have all these solar panels that help with producing the required power and so on. So really building a data center with all the lessons learned from the previous data centers that we have built, but then really also leveraging the benefits that come in a region like Arizona. I mean, obviously it's hot, but this also means there's a lot of solar energy there that can be used to power your data center. So it's an interesting. I thought it was an interesting blog post to really highlight that we're not only building data centers, but we're really spending also a lot of time and effort on making these data centers really sustainable and trying to reduce the carbon footprint here. The next topic, in the light of all the free accounts that coming up, and obviously Azure.com Azure has a free offering. But I think the beautiful thing is it's not a one-time thing that Microsoft is doing there, but we're constantly releasing and enhancing this service. And we just announced that there are 5 new services available for free on Azure. So there's for Postgres, for MySQL, Key Vault, media services, and logic app. They are all new services that are now available for free. So if you sign up for azure.com/free, obviously you need a credit card to authenticate. This credit card is not charged. But then once you have signed up, then yeah, in addition to virtual machines that you can use for free or SQL database, now there's also MySQL, Postgres, and a lot of other services that are available really for free. So I think that's always nice to see that you can very easily get started. Now, taking a closer look at SAP or running SAP on Azure. Obviously, we have Azure Backup in place for quite some time for SAP HANA database and for SQL database. And now we have in a general availability the possibility to do cross-region restore of my SAP HANA database. So basically what this means that I can now really if I have my SAP system running in one region, let's say in West Europe, then I can also do the backup and the restore now to another region, to North Europe, for example, and really leverage this cross this functionality to do really a restore across the different region, which I think obviously can be very helpful if you if one region goes down and you really need to have a restore in your other region.
Especially interesting for DR drills, right? So that's very important to do the DR testing and drilling.
Absolutely, and I think that's actually a very good point. Quite often you just set up a disaster recovery replication, but you never test it, you never do anything. And actually in the cloud, that is one of the things where it's very easy to do this, where you can just do a test. And as you said, having here this possibility to have the functionality to do a restore across the different region can help exactly to also test these cross-region disaster recovery scenarios. Now another beautiful blog post by Martin Pankratz. He has a very nice scenario there where he talks about if you have very high load scenarios, then obviously one possibility is that you really build up your SAP system and really make it very big. But if there's a possibility to offload some of the requests to other services, then that can really protect also my SAP system. And Martin always has some nice scenarios that he outlines, and in this specific case it's about toilet paper, about huge demand of toilet paper. And instead of risking the S4 system or the SAP system to go down, what he describes here is a scenario where he offloads the incoming traffic to a scenario where the data is actually coming from a CosmosDB. So I mean, as you know, or I'm sure you have seen some of the blog posts from Martin. He has a very detailed description. He really guides you through all the required steps or all the required components there. But it's if I scroll back up here, then it's a really interesting scenario from my point of view, where yes, you obviously have your SAP system, you have the real data there, but then you can actually offload or replicate and get data in your CosmosDB. You can have a front end that accesses the data from this CosmosDB, so it does not really necessarily need to touch your SAP system all the time. And by this you can really protect or reduce the stress on your SAP system. And in this guide, he really outlines the required steps, and in the end he talks about that obviously it's not only for toilet paper. This is obviously also very much relevant for other scenarios, but I think it's a very interesting concept that you might consider to reduce the load on your SAP systems here.
And it's a fun read, so really nice reading it.
Absolutely, yeah. Good, then I want to quickly talk about one other thing. We had talked about Azure Static Web Apps. a few episodes ago, and now there's actually really beautiful content in the meantime available. And I think we talked about this information here on yeah, docs.microsoft.com, the whole learning path that goes through this. But actually, there's also now a YouTube series or a playlist that really talks about, well, what it is for, what you can do with it. And these are all fairly short videos, but in these quick short videos, you get a good overview of what you can actually do and what are the benefits of using Azure Static Web Apps and how you can get started with this. So it's fairly, I mean, I've not yet watched all of them, but I watched a few of them, and it's a nice, very easy way to listen and get some information there. So before we hand over to Michael, one last thing. There is this SAP on Azure Talk podcast that in a fairly regular update, our colleagues talk about. So Ravi and Nathan talk about anything on SAP on Azure. It's a very nice way to listen. Typically, these episodes are 10 minutes or 20 minutes long or something like that. They talk about different topics there. And just yesterday, I think, they released another one about cost optimization. Obviously, in the cloud, that's a big thing, as we also saw with the Microsoft Digital piece. So if you have 26 minutes, then just tune in. They have this time a special guest talking about the cost optimization. So I think if you go for a walk with your dog or whatever, then just listen to these 26 minutes. I think it's a very fun way to learn some new things here. Okay, with this, I actually want to hand over to Michael. He has a beautiful GitHub repository, but I don't want to spend too much time there. I will immediately hand over to Michael, and maybe you can start by quickly introducing yourself. What's your role? What you're doing? And then I'm looking forward to your demo and the things that you have prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Holger, very much for inviting me to this great show. I think this is a fantastic format here to get the latest and greatest from the SAP and Azure community. So I'm really happy here to be here today and present something that I've been working on with my customers and partners lately. So my name is Michael Mergell. I'm Cloud Solution Architect for SAP on Azure since nearly 2 years now. Before that, I worked 20 years at another big US technology company and led SAP transformation for German and other global companies. And now I'm working especially in the automobile and manufacturing industry. Mm-hmm. So I help their customers having an easy start on Azure, making sure they get the most out of their investments, and work with them on suitable designs that meets their requirements. And once they have migrated, then to see what integration possibilities there are to bring more innovations, make life even better, like bringing in DevOps, Power Platform, Data Factory, and just to name a few. So, for me, it is so fascinating to be here at Microsoft in the center of IT innovations, and with this unbelievable speed. I mean, every week you show here the news, it's just incredible. So, when customers move to Azure, they don't have to worry anymore about innovations. Yeah, it's practically built into the platform. And if you remember the old days, you always had to fight and invest a lot of hard work and money to bring innovations into your own data center, and here, it comes with the platform. Yeah? So,
that's a good point.
Yeah, and this is really one of the great things. I think that you don't have to worry. The innovations come, but you need to stay informed. That's maybe now today the challenge. Get all the informations of what is possible. Yeah? But that's maybe one of my job role. Yeah, to stay
To
with
help
the
the
customers and exactly, and help them and tell them, hey, here are some really cool new features. Think about it. Yeah. But okay, maybe I start sharing my screen and we dig into the details. Let me start. So what I want to present here is how to deploy SAP HANA system on Azure with DevOps. Yeah, and so I hope you can see this.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
That is here my GitHub repository. And don't worry, I will show a demo very quickly. So not only showing things and talking, but really demonstrating. So what can this repository do? So we can deploy, for now, just the HANA database and SAP VMs. Later on, I will add SAP installation as well. It can do SLES 12, 15, Red Hat 7, 8, lots of VM sizes. It can do the patching and configuration according to relevant SAP nodes. Very important from my perspective. And that was actually the trigger for me to build it, this backup integration.
Mm-hmm.
If customers start with their SAP on Azure cloud journey, there's a lot of documentation to read. And it's good to read all this documentation, but maybe you also want to have a quick start, yeah, when you pilot the first things or have a proof of concept. So yeah, and with this repository, you have an easy start. You can deploy what you need and have also some complicated things automated. So the backup is one thing. Also, the selective disk backup, so the HANA data and log disk. I don't want to have this in the OS backups, yeah, but it's a bit complicated to exclude it. Yeah, it only works through Cloud Shell, and I thought, well, Cloud Shell, nice. It's perfect to automate, so let's do that as well. Same goes for the SAP monitoring extension on Azure. Also nice, I think, is that you can say, hey, I also want to make the measurement automatically. Yeah, then I just here click a button, don't have to download things. Yeah, so just make it easy. Yeah? Maybe before I explain the framework, let's immediately start with the demo, and then I explain a little bit how the pieces fit together. And also, I would like to show then later on how you can set it up, because I tried hard to make it really easy and simple. So let's go to DevOps. So I have in DevOps a project which is called SAP deployment. In DevOps, I have a pipeline, and the pipeline is just for me the graphical user interface. I just wanted to have an easy interface where I can deploy. And so let's run the pipeline. And yeah, so
nice. You have some properties.
The SID today obviously is Hol for Holger. Yeah, so I have here, I can choose a location. I mean, this can be extended to any locations I want. I can also show later on how you can adapt it to your situation. Choose the availability zone, no need for now. And then typically I do the VM deployment, the operating system preparation, HANA database installation, the backup setup, the monitoring extension. For today, I leave out the XSA component because this runs roughly 40 minutes and the performance checks run 5-6 hours. So let's leave this out because we want to finish it. I can even, I mean, if I do a continuous integration, I can also say, hey, I remove it at the end. I just want to see if my latest configuration works. And whenever I have a change in the configuration, I can do continuous integration, deploy it, and make an action out of it if there's an issue or so. But okay, let's leave this like this for now. And then this runs roughly 50 minutes. So I suggest we leave it running in the background, and we can check later on and have a look now how this how this works, what I need, and how I can set it up. Yeah, because I think this is really easy and straightforward. So how the pieces fit together? As I already said, DevOps, it's free. I can use it. A pipeline, I need the pipeline. And I have already prepared the pipeline, so everybody can just take it from GitHub. So basically connect your DevOps project with GitHub, use the code, use the pipeline, everything is there. If you want to adapt it to whatever, to your landing zone, the best way is use Visual Studio Code, because it is really providing nice look and feel and easy editing of code. So just picked here an example. If you would like to use other images as the ones I have here started, you can simply edit here and add other images into the code. And this one here is the Visual Studio Code connected to my GitHub. And here I can adapt the repository to my needs.
And your Azure DevOps pipeline is connected to this specific GitHub repository. And then whenever you do some changes, obviously these changes can be immediately picked up also by your Azure DevOps pipeline.
Exactly. And then the other piece that is needed as a requirement is, I need an Azure subscription for sure. So I need a landing zone, and so I need some basic resources, a landing zone that I can work with. You can do just an easy landing zone to learn with this repository, to use it, but for production workloads, I have also referenced here the link to the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. That is, I would say, really highly recommended for production workloads, because it has all the best practices and the experience from many customers and our own. So consider this as a landing zone, but just to keep it simple and maybe at the beginning for pilots, proof of concept, where we want a quick start and learn automation, this is the minimum that is required to start. We need a deployment agent as well. We need Ansible on the deployment agent and PowerShell. These are pieces that are just required for the different automation parts that come together. So to explain again the prerequisites here, what we need the Azure subscription, a DevOps account is free, GitHub is free. I mean, Azure, you mentioned it earlier, is free also to some extent. If it's a trial subscription, 30 days, $200 US. We need the SAP user with software download capability, because we need to download some bits and binaries.
So this is something that I need to do upfront, right? I mean, this is something where, the user would need an S user, or the user needs to have access to the SAP software download center. They need to download the software, and then I guess put it somewhere in an Azure Blob Store or something.
Exactly. That is, I mean, I was really trying to help with all the pieces. So I would like also here have a button where you can deploy the minimum requirements easily. So then you have the VNet, subnet, and everything ready, especially the recovery service vault with these policies, because my repository is picking up those policies and then can automatically handle all the backup setup.
Okay.
So I'm just now working on this to have this automated. But if you have already, in most situations, actually, I had a a landing zone already. Yeah? So many customers are already in Azure with something. So there is a landing zone ready, and this is not, in most cases, really already existing now. Okay, for the deployment agent, this is also something I put here with a, so this prerequisite you can set up also here with an ARM template, and then you have a deployment agent installed here in the manual section, which we don't need. I always recommend here automation. You have the you see the details that are being deployed. It's PowerShell, Ansible, that's and the DevOps agent. So hereby you deploy the DevOps agent automatically, but we need to configure it. If you remember the picture, we need to connect the DevOps with this deployment agent, and this is described here. How you do that? You simply need the I mean, it has been automatically deployed. It's there. So just run the config script to configure it. We need to have the personal access token out of DevOps. This is the link where it is described how you can get it. I can also show you later on when we have a look in DevOps. And here is a picture what you need to the question and answers of the scripts. Then run the script as a service with every reboot of this Ubuntu VM. Yeah, so another step, you just install the service, then it starts automatically. And also make an AZ login, because from this deployment agent, we run a couple of scripts like the Ansible to install HANA, like the backup preparation script and such kind of things. And so that the deployment agent can connect to the SAP server, we need your private key must be added on this deployment agent as well, so that you can connect. So, and that is all for the prerequisites. And then I'd like to show you how you can set up the everything in DevOps. So let's go to DevOps. Top maybe. Oh, here we are. So yeah, here we see it's still.
It's already running.
It's running, preparing the OS. It's actually a nice view. Interesting to see. Let's have a look. Yeah, so you see all the stages in the DevOps pipeline. There's also another view which is quite nice. If we click on it, we see here the details. So the deployment of the VM. Now is the preparation of the OS. So you see more details where it's going. And
Nice,
yeah. Okay, so we keep this running, but I wanted to show how you set up the pipeline. Yeah? So I have already here pipelines, but if you start from scratch, you set up a new pipeline. And yeah, where is my code? GitHub, obviously. So then, okay. Yeah, you would, I forgot to mention it, you would typically fork the GitHub repository so that you could adapt it to your own landing zones, to your own needs. Yeah? So in your situation, there would be your name, your GitHub username, and then the SAP HANA VM or another name. And I suggest use already the pipeline there that I started. Yeah, it's most easiest to use. And here we see the HANA VM, DevOps pipelines, HANA VM. Continue. And then we see here I have my pipeline. The only thing that users would need to adapt is the target VNet. Yeah, I mean, this is now my landing zone, my VNet and subnet. So just add this. So VNet customer and here subnet customer. So it just need to be adapted to your landing zone. And what we have to do, we have to configure variables, which I show here. So these are the variables that I need to configure. I need to configure the password for the HANA database, which DNS zone I'm using. I need to put my public SSH key here that it is deployed to all the systems. And the SSH key that I mentioned before is belonging to this so that the logins will work. The subscription ID is needed, and some, I leave the details then for those who want to set it up. And so when all the variables are here, I don't do this now here.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So basically, we, I mean, that's what I have in my pipeline, what we could see earlier. And so when the pipelines are, when the variables are configured, then you can here run the pipeline, enter what you want, and deploy.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
about it.
So it's really straightforward. Just to quickly recap. So I would go to this repo. I would fork the repo into so that I have full flexibility. You have also documented. Perfect. Exactly. And then once I've done this, once I really have it in my own repository, I would go to Azure DevOps. I would connect to my GitHub. I would select this repository. Then I can actually use the pipeline that you have already created. I need to do some modifications there. I need to add the variables, and then I'm already good to go.
Absolutely. Maybe a couple of things I mentioned. There's below some more steps. You need the Ansible extension installed in your DevOps, and I didn't.
Yes.
The
SAP
binaries.
software.
Yeah. Otherwise, it won't work. So let's have a look where this is here. So I have a container for sure, a storage account which is called here Subbits West Europe. There is a container. I called it files, and here are the subbits. Yeah. So obviously, and so where do you configure? I mean, everybody has its own storage container, so it's a different URL. And let me quickly show you how you have to configure. So you take the URL, and in Visual Studio Code, I mean, that was the HANA binaries. So HANA is installed with Ansible. It will be here as part of the Ansible in the parameters of the Ansible. And where is it? The URL, the HDB server. Yeah. So here I have to put my specific URL to the storage account.
Cool. Yeah, because obviously we from Microsoft, we are not allowed to distribute SAP software. So that's why everyone who's using this needs to have needs to log on with a valid SAP user. Everyone needs to have a valid license to be allowed to download the software, and then I can put it in my own Azure Blob Store, and then I can configure exactly what you just shown in Ansible and point it to my Azure Blob Store, and then I can run this. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Then there is a disk configuration script and the backup integration script. These are they are coming from the internet, but most of the SAP landing zones, they don't have access to the internet. So here the same. You put them into the container, get the URL, and put the URL where it is needed. Yeah. So the disk config is part here of the variables because it's required in the VM deployment, which is done via ARM, and this backup is something that is running from Ansible, and so we have to put it in the Ansible RAS defaults file. Yeah, that one I showed already before, and then I wanted to mention also how to configure the connectivity to Azure. So in DevOps, you have here the service connections. Where is it? Service connections. Here. Yeah. So in DevOps, we need the service connection to Azure for sure, that this deployment is possible, and the connection to GitHub, because the pipeline, the YAML file of the DevOps pipeline is also in GitHub. Yeah? So, these two service connections are needed. Don't ask me why I have two GitHub connections. I don't know that. So yeah, and that's all. Yeah? And then you can deploy SAP HANA system. I think it's really cool and easy because with DevOps you have the graphical user interface.
Mm-hmm.
It is using ARM templates. Yeah, I mean we have one in your previous blogs. Let me see. I put this especially here. I think this was with Matt and Jeff. Yeah, the one with the enterprise scale. Yeah, there are other possibilities you can use. Also really cool, and they are using Terraform, and I'm using now DevOps and ARM, just a different way. And
that actually brings me to another interesting point. Obviously, if you go to github.com, I think /Azure, there's the HANA repository, which has this very holistic, broad set of Terraform and Ansible scripts that allow you also to install an SAP HANA system. Yeah, exactly here, the SAP Deployment Automation Framework that really comes with a lot of content there. So why, or when would I use this, and when would I use your repo, for example?
Yeah, that is a good question. I would say maybe if a customer is more focused on ARM templates, that's a good reason. If a customer or partner is already heavily using DevOps, that's also a good reason. I mean, here they plan as well to have DevOps ready sooner or later. Yeah? So I think this one here is also it. I mean, there is a huge team involved. This is our golden standard. So I think this is maybe, I would say, more enterprise ready. It can do more. It can do ANF. It can do clustering. But it also takes more time to get familiar with it. Yeah? So I think we have multiple options. If, for example, for a pilot or a proof of concept, and you want to have really quickly a HANA VM according to Microsoft and SAP recommendations, so my template or my repository is a good alternative, I would say, because I think you can really start fast. Yeah. You can even, maybe just one last sentence here. You can even, if you just want a HANA VM according to the Microsoft sub recommendations, with the stripe sizes, with caching, with accelerator, so all these nitty-gritty details, you can, and just the infrastructure, you can press this button and choose the size you want without doing anything, and that's also maybe helpful as a minimum.
Yeah. No, I think looking at what you've done there, for example, if I let's say I just want to use Azure Backup or I want to test Azure Backup. For me, it sounds like I mean, setting this up, the prerequisites seems to be like really extremely fast. I mean, I just fork the repo and then again do these small configurations that you outlined, and then it looks like within 15 minutes or something like that. I think it's still running, but in a short period of time, I have my SAP HANA system up and running, which means then I could immediately play around and test, for example, Azure Backup. And I think so for a scenario where I really just want to get started, where I really just want to have a quick SAP system up and running, this sounds like a very reasonable approach. And I actually very much like your idea about this integration in Azure DevOps, so that I maybe I don't want to script too much. Maybe I'm not too familiar with all the CLI and stuff like that, and Terraform commands. Then having this Azure DevOps as a user interface, I think that's also nice. And as you said, I mean, we're giving here choice to the customers. Some customers might be really happy in digging deep into all the Terraform and Ansible scripts that we are providing there. And someone else, maybe if I'm a consultant, just going to a customer where I want to show a disaster recovery scenario, whatever, then maybe using this approach here is even better for this scenario.
Yeah. Maybe
Very
also the what Petra and Robert showed the other day, this demo generator. I think I opened the link here as well. Yeah. So I downloaded it, and I mean, this is also in DevOps. So where is it? The boards, I guess. Yeah. I mean, this is so useful when you start. You have all the references, all the links that are relevant for SAP on Azure, and yeah, and so you have it in one place. Yeah, here you have all the documentation.
Great.
Then you go to pipelines and can deploy. So
yeah,
fits nicely together.
Very nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. I think
good.
That's
it.
Yeah,
let's quickly go back, because I thought it is already pretty far, right? So the infrastructure is installed, the HANA system is installed, and now we are at the step to.
We are at the backup. And
okay.
I was a little bit preparing that it might not be finished here, so I did run the same this morning. So with the same. So you can see here the backup activation takes 6 minutes roughly. Yeah. So it's so it is doing. It creates a SAP HANA backup container. It does the registration. This is this integration script. Then I'm doing the selective disk backups. This is quite nice. So moving out the HANA data and log from the OS backup. It's really not required because we have the HANA database backups. And also nice, I think, is the monitoring extension. So that in SAP in ST06, you can see all the Azure details. And it's automated. I mean, there is Docu, but maybe you don't want to fiddle around with the details, and yeah, just have it automated.
But that's so really great. So after this, once I've run it, I see, for example, in my Azure portal, in Azure Monitor, I would see my SAP system. If I go to the Azure backup in the portal, I would see that there's now a backup for my SAP system running. I think that's really, for me, the beautiful thing, that within 20 minutes or so, you really have from nothing, you have an SAP HANA system up and running that you can use, where you can see where you can test some of the other Azure services, how they interact with your SAP system, for example. Or obviously you can connect with an HANA Studio and get started with this one.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's about it.
Great, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you too very much.
I definitely need to give this a try and test it out. I think it's very very helpful. As always, we'll have the link to your GitHub repository in the show notes. So everyone is more than welcome to fork your repository, give it a try, and I guess they can also create issues.
Absolutely, I'd love that. Yeah, please in GitHub, maybe in the comments, or yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Looking forward to.
Good, perfect. Then thank you very much for joining us today, and looking forward to seeing you again on the show. Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Holger.
Bye-bye.
Everyone. Bye.